The morning Martin Fletcher brought his excavator out to estimate clearing costs, Elena Briggs was standing in her west pasture with 37 goats spread across the hillside like they were reading the land in a language only they understood. By afternoon, Martin had driven back through town telling everyone at the feed store that Elena's rocky mess would cost $40,000 to clear, if it could be cleared at all, and those scrub goats would starve before they made a dent in 20 acres of blackberry hell. For months earlier, Elena had stood in the same field with the county extension agent, whose clipboard and press shirt looked absurd against the brutal reality of the terrain. "Ms. Briggs, I'll be straight with you." David Morrison tapped his pen against the board. "This land isn't farmable. Your aunt may have run sheep here 30 years ago, but the invasive species have taken over. Multiflora rose, autumn olive, blackberry thickets thick as walls. And the rocks." He gestured at the limestone outcroppings jutting through the soil like broken teeth. "Equipment can't work this. Even if you could afford clearing, you'd destroy what topsoil remains." Elena walked to the fence line, boots catching on bramble runners thick as her thumb. The November wind came cold across the Missouri hills. Her hands were already calloused from 3 months of trying to resurrect her Aunt Vera's farm. The property she'd inherited along with Vera's debts, Vera's reputation for stubbornness, and apparently Vera's talent for making impossible choices. "What do you recommend?" she asked. "Sell it. Timber value only. Someone might pay for the house and barn, take the land for hunting. And if I don't want to sell?" Morrison's face arranged itself into professional sympathy. "Then you're looking at a very expensive project with a very uncertain outcome." After he left, Elena sat on the tailgate of her truck and called her brother in Kansas City. "The extension guy says it's hopeless," she told Marcus. "So sell. Come work with me. The firm's hiring analysts. I don't want to analyze spreadsheets. I want to farm." "Elena, you're 32 years old with a biology degree and student loans. Aunt Vera loved that place, but love doesn't pay bills. She left it to me for a reason. She left it to you because no one else was fool enough to take it." Elena ended the call, sat in the quiet, watched the way the late sun caught the hillside, turning the invasive thickets into something almost beautiful if you didn't know they were choking everything native underneath. That night she pulled out Vera's journals, decades of them, kept in neat handwriting that got shakier in the final years. One entry from 1983 stopped her cold. "Bought 40 Spanish goats from the Mendoza dispersal. Everyone says I'm crazy. Goats are worthless, they say. Can't sell the meat. Can't sell the milk for what dairy goats bring. But they'll eat what sheep won't touch. Go where cattle can't reach." Sometimes the answer isn't what brings the most money. Sometimes it's what solves the problem everyone else won't face. The next morning, Elena started calling breeders. At the livestock auction in Springfield, she found what she was looking for: a mixed group of Spanish and Kiko goats being sold off from an estate. Hardy breeds, built for rough country. The auctioneer seemed surprised when her bidding card went up. Starting at $200 for the lot. 37 head, various ages. $200. Going once. "She knows they're goats, right?" someone behind her muttered. "Not cattle. Maybe she wants pets," another voice answered. Laughter rippled through the crowd. The man next to her, heavy canvas coat and John Deere cap, leaned over. "Miss, those are Spanish goats. They're not worth much for meat, and they're sure not dairy animals. You might be bidding on the wrong lot. I know what they are. Just trying to help." The auctioneer brought down his gavel. "Sold to number 17. Ma'am, you can settle up at the office." Loading them took 2 hours. They were smart, wary, and stronger than they looked. When she finally had them secured in the stock trailer, the same man from the auction approached her truck. "You really know what you're doing with those?" "I'm learning." He shook his head. "Good luck. You'll need it." The goats arrived at the farm on a gray December afternoon. Elena turned them into a small paddock near the barn, watched them explore, test the fences, establish their hierarchy with efficient brutality. The lead doe, scarred, rangy, with a Roman nose and intelligent eyes, claimed the highest point and surveyed her new territory. "You're in charge then," Elena said. "Fine by me." At the feed store the next week, picking up minerals and fencing supplies, she ran into Carol Wendt, who'd farmed the adjacent property for 20 years. "Heard you bought goats," Carol said. "Not quite friendly, not quite hostile." "I did. Planning to do what with them exactly?" "Clear the west pasture." Carol's expression shifted into something between pity and amusement. Honey, that pasture needs a bulldozer and a burn permit. Goats can't clear that kind of growth. We'll see. Martin Fletcher charges fair rates for excavation. Might want to get an estimate before you waste too much time. But Martin's estimate, when it came, confirmed what Elena already suspected. She couldn't afford mechanical clearing. The $40,000 quote might as well have been $4 million. Tom Driscoll, who ran cattle on the property south of hers, stopped by that weekend. Leaned against his truck, arms crossed, the universal posture of a man about to deliver unwanted advice. Elena, I'm going to say this as a neighbor. That land's beat. Your aunt ran it into the ground the last decade, bless her heart. Between the invasives and the rocks, you're looking at a loss. Best thing is to admit it's not workable and move on. Thanks for the input. I'm serious. You're throwing good money after bad. Those goats, he shook his head. They'll get tangled in that multiflora rose, and you'll spend your time pulling bodies out of thickets. It's not sustainable. After he left, Elena walked the fence line at dusk. The goats were already in the pasture, moving through the impossible terrain with casual confidence. They ate the multiflora rose, thorns and all. They stripped bark from the autumn olive. They climbed the rocky outcroppings and browsed the blackberry canes from above, working angles machines never could. The lead doe met her eyes across the dimming field. Something passed between them, recognition, maybe, or just the acknowledgement that they were both built for difficult ground. Elena's phone buzzed. Marcus, thought about what I said. She typed back, yeah, still farming. That night she made a plan. Rotational browsing, high-density grazing, patience. The goats would work in sections, moving every few days, hitting the invasives hard before they could recover. It would take time, maybe years. But Vera's journals said the same thing, over and over. The land remembers good management. You just have to give it time to heal. The county laughed. The neighbors watched. And Elena proceeded, with 37 goats and a stubbornness she'd inherited along with the rocks. The snow came early that year, 2 weeks before Christmas. Elena stood in the barn sorting hay while the goats pressed close, their breath steaming in the cold. Outside, the west pasture lay under 6 inches of white. But even covered, she could see the change, the blackberry thickets visibly thinner, the autumn olive stripped to main trunks, the multiflora rose broken down to manageable stems. 3 months. They'd only been working 3 months, and already the goats had done what Carol Wett said was impossible. But no one was looking. No one wanted to see. At the co-op meeting in January, Tom Driscoll brought up the county's new land management requirements, something about erosion control and best practices. His eyes slid toward Elena when he mentioned properties with inadequate clearing methods. Some folks are trying to farm land that shouldn't be farmed, he said, creating runoff problems, harboring invasive species. Maybe we need oversight. Elena stood. The room went quiet. You got something specific to say, Tom? Say it direct. His face reddened. Just that some properties need professional management, not amateur experiments. My land's not creating runoff. The goats are stabilizing the soil while they clear. You're welcome to come see for yourself. I've seen a bunch of scrub goats wandering around doing nothing productive. Then you weren't looking close enough. She sat down. The meeting moved on. But the damage was done. The collective judgment of people who decided her failure before she'd had time to succeed. Her daughter Sophie called that night. 16 years old, living with her father in Colombia after the divorce, calling less and less as the months passed. Mom, Dad says you're living on a farm now. I am. He says it's not going well. He doesn't know what he's talking about. A pause. Are you okay? Like financially? I'm fine, baby. Because if you need to move back to town, we could figure something out. Elena closed her eyes. Sophie, I'm building something here. It takes time. Dad says you're being stubborn. That Aunt Vera's place was always a money pit. Your dad's entitled to his opinion. After Sophie hung up, Elena sat in the quiet farmhouse. Vera's furniture, Vera's dishes, Vera's ghosts. The weight of disapproval pressed from all sides. Her ex-husband, her brother, her daughter, her neighbors. All of them waiting for her to admit defeat, come back to reasonable life, stop embarrassing herself with impossible dreams. The lead doe bleated from the barn. Elena pulled on her coat and went out. By March, the goats had cleared 8 acres. The transformation was undeniable up close. Invasive species beaten back, native grasses beginning to emerge, the rocky soil visible and workable. Elena documented everything with photos, measurements, soil samples sent to the university. The results came back in mid-April. Organic matter up, erosion down, biodiversity improving. She showed the report to Carol Went at the feed store. Carol read it twice. This is real data? From the university lab. How do you get organic matter to increase on that rocky mess? The goats cycle nutrients. Their hooves break up compaction around the rocks. They're not fighting the terrain, they're working with it. Carol handed back the report. Interesting. But 8 acres in 5 months isn't exactly a revolution. You've got 20 acres total. At this rate, you're looking at years. I know. And then what? Even if you clear it, what are you farming? You can't run cattle on that slope. I'll run goats. Market the meat to ethnic communities, sell breeding stock to other farmers with marginal land. Carol's expression said everything. Sure, honey. Good luck with that. But the goats kept working. Elena moved them in tight rotations, concentrated their impact, watched the land respond. The lead doe, she'd named her Vera, inevitably, had taught the herd to work as a unit. They tackled the worst thickets together, climbing, pulling, stripping vegetation with surgical efficiency. In May, a journalist from the regional agriculture magazine showed up. Someone at the university had mentioned her project. Ms. Briggs, I'm writing about innovative land management techniques. Your extension agent said you're using goats to clear invasive species on terrain unsuitable for mechanical methods. Elena wiped her hands on her jeans. That's right. Can I see? She walked him through the pasture, showed him the cleared sections, the recovering native plants, the way the goats navigated the rocky outcroppings. He took photos, asked technical questions, seemed genuinely interested. This is remarkable, he said. Why isn't everyone doing this? Because everyone thinks it won't work. But it is working. Yes. But people don't like changing their minds. The article came out in July. Goats reclaim Missouri hillside. New model for marginal land management. The photo spread showed her West Pasture in dramatic before and after shots. The text was glowing, called her approach innovative and potentially transformative for farmers dealing with similar terrain. Elena's phone started ringing. First, other farmers, 3 in Missouri, 2 in Arkansas, 1 from Oklahoma, all with rocky, overgrown land and no budget for mechanical clearing. Then equipment dealers, wondering if she'd consider sponsored posts. Then Tom Driscoll. Saw the article, he said. Didn't apologize. Just, how many goats you running per acre? Depends on the density of growth. Wanna come see? He showed up the next morning. Walked the entire cleared section without speaking. Finally, I'll be damned. Yeah. You're really making this work. I really am. He stood at the fence line, looking at his own property. Conventional pasture, maintained with mowing and herbicides. Productive but expensive. What would you charge to consult? I'm not set up for consulting yet. Well, get set up. Because I've got a rocky corner section I've been ignoring for 15 years. If goats can work this mess, he gestured at her land. They can work anywhere. After he left, Elena sat on the porch with coffee and Vera's journals. Read the entry from 1985. Finally cleared the west section. Took 3 years, but the goats did what I couldn't afford to pay machines to do. Everyone who laughed is asking questions now. Funny how success changes the conversation. Elena smiled. The land remembers, Vera had written. And so do people, eventually. The goats called from the pasture. Tomorrow, 13 acres would be cleared. By fall, she'd have the entire 20 acres workable. And then the real farming would begin. The drought hit in August. 3 weeks of 100-degree heat that turned the county's conventional pastures brown and brittle. Elena's west section, now 18 acres of cleared, goat-managed land, stayed green. The deep-rooted native plants the goats had allowed to return pulled moisture from depths the invasive monocultures never reached. Tom Driscoll stood at her fence line staring at the contrast between their properties. His grass was dying. Hers was thriving. How, he asked. Biodiversity, Elena said. The goats cleared the invasives but left the natives. Deeper roots, better drought tolerance. Plus the organic matter they've added. It holds moisture better than compacted soil. He was quiet for a long moment. I've been farming 40 years. Never thought goats could do what you've done here. Most people don't. I was wrong. At the meeting, what I said, I was out of line. Yes, you were. I'd like to hire you. For consulting. Serious money, not just neighbor rates. Elena considered him. Saw genuine humility, the hard-won kind that comes from having reality rearrange your assumptions. I'll come look at your property next week. But Tom, this isn't quick. It's years of building. I understand. Do you? Because everyone wants the results without the patience. The goats aren't magic. They're just animals being allowed to do what they're bred for. I understand, he repeated. And this time, maybe he did. By September, Elena had 6 consulting clients. She'd bought 20 more goats, started a breeding program focused on hardy, land-clearing stock. Sophie came to visit, first time since Elena had moved to the farm, and spent 3 days following her mother through the pastures, asking questions, taking photos. Mom, this is actually cool, Sophie said, watching the goats strip the last section of autumn olive. Like, really cool. Yeah. Dad said you were wasting your time. But you're building something real. Elena's throat tightened. Thanks, baby. Can I come back for fall break? Maybe help with the breeding records? I'd like that. That evening, they sat on the porch while the goats settled in for the night. The west pasture rolled out below them, cleared and green. Stone outcroppings no longer obstacles, but character. The bones of the land visible and beautiful. You miss town? Sophie asked. Sometimes. But not like I thought I would. You seem different. Calmer, maybe. Elena smiled. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. That's a rare thing. The county extension agent came out in October to document the final results. David Morrison walked the entire 20 acres, tablet in hand, stopping every few yards to take measurements and photos. Ms. Briggs, I owe you an apology. You were doing your job. I was doing my job badly. I should have listened instead of assuming. He crouched, scooped a handful of soil, let it crumble through his fingers. This is remarkable. The organic matter increase, the erosion control, the species diversity. You've essentially regenerated this land in under a year. The goats regenerated it. I just gave them the opportunity. We'd like to feature this as a case study. Host workshops here, if you're willing. There are thousands of acres in this state that are written off as unfarmable, too rocky, too steep, too degraded. What you've done proves there's another way. The workshops started in November. Farmers came from across the region, men and women Elena's age and older, all of them facing the same problem. Land everyone said couldn't be fixed. She walked them through her methods, showed them the cleared pastures, let them handle the goats and see how the animals worked. A woman from Arkansas, probably 60, with sun-weathered hands and tired eyes, stayed after the others left. I'm Mae Preston, she said. I've got 80 acres in the Ozarks. Rocky as yours, maybe worse. Bank's been after me to sell for 3 years. You want to keep farming? It's all I know. All I want to know. But I can't afford clearing, and everyone says the land's not worth saving. Elena recognized the look on Mae's face, the same desperation and stubborn hope she'd felt a year ago. The land's always worth saving. Question is whether you've got the patience to do it right. I've got patience. Just need to know it's possible. It's possible. Come back next month. Bring your soil test results and photos of your property. We'll make a plan. Mae's eyes filled. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. It's hard work. I'm not afraid of hard work. Elena believed her. By January, the transformation was complete. Not just the land, but the conversation around it. The farmers who'd dismissed her were now calling for advice. The neighbors who'd laughed were now asking questions. Martin Fletcher, the excavator operator, stopped by with a proposition. Elena, I've been thinking. There's probably a lot of folks like you. Need clearing, but can't afford my rates. What if we partnered? I handle the heavy stuff, you consult on the goat management for the detail work. You think there's a market? After seeing what you've done? Absolutely. She considered it. Thought about Vera's words. Sometimes the answer isn't what brings the most money. Sometimes it's what solves the problem everyone else won't face. Let me think about it, she said. I'll call you next week. After he left, she walked out to the pasture one more time. The lead doe, Vera, met her at the gate, patient and knowing. The rest of the herd spread across the hillside, grazing the native grasses that had returned, moving over the rocky ground with casual confidence. This land that everyone said was worthless now fed 60 goats and was generating income from consulting, breeding stock sales, and soon, meat sales to ethnic markets that valued what mainstream agriculture overlooked. The rocky outcroppings that Martin had quoted $40,000 to remove were still there, but now they were features, not problems. The land's bones, visible and beautiful. Elena's phone buzzed. "Marcus, saw your write-up in Farm Journal. Mom would be proud. Guess you made the right call." She typed back, "I know." That night, she updated Vera's journals. Her own entry now, her own record of lessons learned. Wrote about the goats, the patience, the year of proving what everyone said couldn't be done. Wrote about the farmers who were coming to learn, the land that was healing, the quiet satisfaction of being devastatingly, completely right. Sophie was coming home in the spring. Wanted to spend the summer helping with the breeding program, maybe filming content for farmers who couldn't visit in person. "I think this could be big, Mom," she'd said on the phone. "Like, really help people. Maybe. Or maybe it would just be Elena and her goats in the land, continuing the work Vera had started." Either way, the rocky hillside that no one wanted was now productive ground. The impossible pasture was cleared, and Elena Briggs, who everyone said was wasting her time, was building something that would outlast the laughter. The goats settled in for the night, their sounds carrying across the dark hillside. Tomorrow, 3 more farmers were coming to learn. The work continued. The land provided. And Elena, as always, would be there at dawn, proceeding forward with the steady confidence of someone who'd never needed validation. Just time for the truth to grow through the rocks everyone else couldn't see past.